Hey, it's Clip of the Day time where Buck Sexton and I pick out the best hot take, the most fun that we had for all of you to be able to experience on the show.
That's right, and this segment is brought to you by ExpressVPN, which is the virtual private network that we trust to protect our online data.
When I use ExpressVPN, the big tech companies can't see my IP address, my identity is anonymized, and my data's encrypted. That gives me the absolute maximum protection.
And what I like is how easy it is to use. Just download the app to your phone or computer, and you're protected. So visit expressvpn.com/patriot today, and you'll get an extra 3 months free, or you can click on the link in the description below.
That's expressvpn.com/patriot, and now it's time for the clip of the day.
I see this, and this is one of these moments where we have to understand how this influences everything we talk about when it comes to COVID. Because this is the left, the apparatus of Fauciism, CNN as the DNC propaganda mouthpiece that it is, lying to people willfully and maliciously because it was more fun to ridicule the other side than it was to just deal with the reality of the fact that there are still some MDs out there who think, by the way, they don't say it cures it. They don't even say they know how much. I mean, some might say they feel very strongly, but no one's saying this is a silver bullet or anything like that. It's just because we didn't have great therapeutics, it's worth it to take a safe drug for humans.
There's no harm that can be done here.
That was how my doctor put it to me. He goes, there's no downside here. He's like, it's not going to hurt you, and it may help you, and there's some reason to believe it may help you. Given that that was the conversation, and then they pretended that it was horse dewormer, this is just, the limousine liberals over at CNN essentially spewing bile on the rest of the country, anybody who doesn't go along with Fauciism, for the amusement of their audience at the expense of truth and science and honesty. And that's what CNN is now. That's who they are.
Now, I want to give credit to Sanjay Gupta for going on Joe Rogan's podcast, because this is something that Dr. Fauci refused to do with us. For people out there who don't know, we have, Buck and I, made official requests for Dr. Fauci. He has time to do a documentary. He's got time to do CNN and MSNBC multiple times a day. They basically have their own offices for him there. We've got the biggest radio show in the country, and we went to him and said, hey, we'll be fair. We just want to ask you questions about COVID outside of the protected sphere of CNN and MSNBC, because, frankly, there are a lot of questions that are not being asked that rational, reasonable, nuanced people out there, both in our audience and beyond, would like to hear answered. And so, to Dr. Sanjay Gupta's credit, he went on Joe Rogan's podcast. Unfortunately, you saw how quickly, for him, unfortunately, fortunately for us, you saw how quickly the talking points can collapse when you don't have Don Lemon sort of cradling you and holding you and saying, oh, you're so amazing. And so I want you to listen to Joe Rogan as he grills down on Dr. Sanjay Gupta. This is what happens when you get outside of the Anderson Cooper, of the Don Lemon, of the Jake Tapper on CNN, all of these guys, Brian Stelter, who were saying the horse dewormer. This is what happens when you actually go beyond the headline and ask some questions of a CNN medical expert. Listen to this.
Do you think that's a problem, that your news network lies?
Well, I don't.
Dude.
What did they say?
They lied and said
say?
I was taking horse dewormer. First of all, it was prescribed to me by a doctor.
Yeah.
Along
they
with
shouldn't have said
a
it was
bunch of other medications.
If you got a human pill, because there were people that were taking it, the veterinary medication, you're not, obviously. You got it from a doctor, so that it shouldn't be called that. Ivermectin can be a very effective medication for parasitic disease. And as you say, it's probably, I think, 250 million people have taken it around the world.
More,
I get that.
Way more. Billions of people have taken it. Does it bother you that the news network you work for out and out lied, just outright lied about me taking horse dewormer?
They shouldn't have said that.
Why did they do that?
I don't know.
You didn't ask? You didn't think that was You're the medical guy over there.
I didn't ask. I should have asked before coming on your podcast.
But they did it with such glee.
No,
yes,
Joe.
they did. I watched.
They absolutely did do it with glee. They thought it was hilarious. They loved running these headlines about horse dewormer. I saw it on the screen, Clay, as we were doing the show time and time again. And isn't it fascinating? Neither you nor I are MDs, but we both have plenty of people in our lives who either inform us because there are doctors or people that call in or email into the show. What we told this audience, remember, you can go back and listen. It's all there. Great time to tell people, check out the Clay and Buck podcast, by the way. It's all there for you. We were saying, whenever this controversy, what was it, back in August, I think? We were saying a few months ago exactly what Dr. Sanjay Gupta is saying, which is that it is safe. They lied. It's not right for them to call it horse dewormer. Millions and millions of people have taken it around the world. It has saved millions of people's lives or saved them from blindness in many cases. And you look at this, Clay, and you realize they have entirely, the narrative weaponized is what this is all about. There are the good people and the bad people. Trump supporters that don't take the vaccine, as far as CNN is concerned, are medical insurrectionists. But, you know, African Americans in major cities who have vaccine hesitancy, well, that's totally understandable because CNN looks at them as Democrats, of course, and as minorities. And so they'll say, well, that's normal hesitancy for people. What? It's because they're always creating these narratives and chasing them irrespective of what the facts and what actual fairness would do.
Yeah, and what I love about this, and this is why I wanted to have Fauci on our program, and by the way, I would have Dr. Sanjay Gupta on our program as well. We've had a lot of doctors on the program. I'm sure you would also, Buck.
Yeah.
But conversations like these are important because they puncture the existing worldview of cloisterdom, for lack of a better word. I think I just invented that word. But everybody has their own island, effectively. And what you saw there was, if you're surrounded entirely by people who reinforce what you already believe, it felt to a large degree like Gupta was stunned to be challenged in that way because there's so little challenging that goes on now inside of those networks. Buck, you've talked about it. You used to be the resident conservative that they would bring out and kind of like slap around. They don't even do that anymore.
It's a little more complicated than that, Clay. First of all, they would get slapped around, part one, which is why they stopped having me on. And part two, they actually brought me on as a counterterrorism expert, really. I used to do terrorism analysis on CNN because I knew that stuff so well, having worked at the CTC of the CIA, that they were like, okay, well, this guy knows his stuff. And then when Trump came on board, they said, oh, we need more people who will speak from a conservative political point of view. And all of a sudden I started appearing to, and when they saw that I was a Trump supporter, then it was, you know, all the artillery pieces pointed in my direction. But here's what I think Sanjay Gupta, and I'll tell you, and I always say this, like last night, I know you were on Tucker Show. I was on the 7 p.m. with Jesse Waters, and I was talking about CNN, this issue. You know, Van Jones is a formidable guy in a debate, and he knows his way around a political strategy. So when he speaks, a lot of CNN audience, I think, even if he's saying something that's critical, they'll tend to listen a little bit. And he will say things about Democrats that are sometimes critical, right? Sometimes.
Yes.
Usually because they're not left-wing enough is what he'll criticize them for. Sanjay Gupta has a reputation of being a nice guy, a good guy. And I think he was caught in a moment where it was Sanjay Gupta, the MD, who knows a lot of people are watching, a lot of people are listening, knowing that his network betrayed the American people. And then Sanjay Gupta, the chief medical correspondent of CNN, who's all of his friends, and I'm sure he goes to their weddings and the cocktail parties, is like, I don't want to throw CNN under the bus. I think that's the collision that you saw in his mind happening in real time when he was on Joe Rogan's show.